You meet someone new, they're kind, warm, easy to be around. They laugh at your jokes, really listen when you talk. You feel seen, safe, even understood. It feels good, like you've found someone who gets you. And then, out of the blue, they accuse you of something totally wild, something you didn't do. Maybe they call you a liar, or manipulative, or say you're exactly like all the people you can't stand. You're left stunned, speechless, not because it hurts, but because it makes no sense at all. It's like they're looking at a stranger wearing your face. You replay every conversation in your head. Did I say something wrong? Did I miss a sign? Was I too distant? Or maybe too close? You start doubting yourself, your memory, your sanity, even your worth. But here's the thing, what if the problem was never you? Carl Jung said something powerful once. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. But what if some people are so scared to understand themselves that they'd rather smash the mirror than face what's really inside? This isn't about them, it's about what's living inside them that they refuse to see. It's about what happens when that darkness, their inner shadow, gets projected onto you. Today, we're diving into the human shadow, the parts of us hidden deep down, denied or pushed away until they explode. We'll explore what it feels like when those explosions land in your life, in your relationships, your family, your job, even on a bigger scale in society. Because here's a terrifying truth. The person accusing you might not even realize they're lying. Their shadow is doing that work. And until you learn how to spot it, you'll keep walking into rooms where people smile with their lips but sharpen knives behind their eyes. By the time we're done, you'll know how to recognize projection, how to protect your mind from someone else's chaos, and how to stop confusing their darkness with your reflection. This isn't just psychology, it's survival. So stay with me, because what you're about to learn could save you from the next silent attack, the kind that doesn't leave bruises, but breaks something way deeper inside. There's this strange moment we all experience in life, but don't really understand until it happens to us. You're working hard, showing up on time, going above and beyond, but your boss calls you lazy. He micromanages everything you do, watching your every move, yet never takes responsibility when things go wrong. You start thinking, maybe I am lazy, maybe I'm just not good enough, or maybe you're in a relationship that seems promising, things seem like they're going well. Then suddenly they accuse you of being emotionally cold or closed off. It puzzles you because you've been open, vulnerable, even more than usual. Still, they say, you never really let me in, and then suddenly, they disappear. Ghosted. That it doesn't make sense, right? Until you realize something crucial. They weren't really seeing you. They were seeing their own reflection, their own shadow. Carl Jung called this the shadow self, the hidden parts of our psyche we refuse to admit. The jealousy, anger, cowardice, cruelty, and all the desires we hide away. But here's the catch. The more we deny our shadow, the more power it has over us. Because what we refuse to face inside ourselves, we start projecting onto others. It's like this. Your boss calls you lazy because deep down he feels incompetent, scared to take responsibility. Your partner says you're emotionally unavailable because they're terrified of getting close. The person accusing others of lying might be living a web of deception themselves. This isn't just hypocrisy, it's projection. Projection is a psychological defense mechanism where people unconsciously throw their own darkness onto others. They accuse you of being the very thing they can't admit about themselves. Imagine a haunted house of distorted mirrors. Every reflection is warped. Every accusation is a ghost fighting its own demons, but wearing your face. What makes projection so dangerous is that it's unconscious. These people aren't faking it. They truly believe their accusations. Their minds have rewritten reality to protect their fragile ego. Jung said it best, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. That's projection in action. It blinds people to their own flaws by forcing them onto someone else, and you become the stage where their darkest fears play out. It's everywhere. The friend who gossips endlessly yet warns you not to trust anyone. The parent who screams about respect, but belittles everyone around them. The social media user crusading against narcissists while worshipping their own image with every selfie. The shadow isn't just for criminals or villains. It lives in everyday people. Your co-workers, your partners, even you. Everyone has a shadow. But here's the difference. Some face it, most don't. And those who don't, they're the dangerous ones. They go through life blaming others, for the very things they carry inside. They mistake clarity for attack, honesty for offense, your boundaries as abandonment. You can't disagree with them because that threatens their fragile illusion. You can't succeed because your success highlights their failure. You can't leave because your absence exposes their emptiness. Yet to survive, they convince themselves you are the villain, never them. That's why when someone suddenly turns on you, it feels so creepy. It's not just betrayal, it's psychological dissonance. They're fighting their own demon and trying to use your name for it. If you don't understand projection, you might internalize it, carry guilt that isn't yours, apologize for things you didn't do, shrink yourself to make others more comfortable, question your own truth because someone can't face theirs. But once you see projection for what it is, everything changes. You stop taking things personally. You stop absorbing chaos that isn't yours. You start spotting red flags sooner, the misplaced anger, the wild accusations, the stories that don't add up, because beneath it all, the person yelling at you isn't really mad at you. They're mad at a part of themselves, but they don't know it yet. Some people don't just have a shadow, they eventually become the shadow. At first glance, they might seem magnetic or even inspiring. They're confident, almost captivating, and when they talk, their words feel like a jolt of raw energy. Part of you wants to believe in them. Who wouldn't? They seem so sure, so certain, offering clarity in a world full of chaos. But underneath that certainty is something darker, pulsing, and you can sense it if you look close enough. Carl Jung actually warned us about this shift. He called it ego inflation. That's when someone's ego has grown so huge, so out of control, that it doesn't just cast a shadow, it swallows everything. There's no self-reflection left, no pause, no humility, just the ego running the show. What's left isn't a person wrestling with their darkness, it's a person being ruled by it. Those are the most dangerous ones, because they're convinced that everything they feel, everything they think, is automatically right. There's no room for doubt, no curiosity. These are the cult leaders who insist they alone have the answers. Narcissistic influencers preaching about authenticity while editing every pixel of their lives. Fanatics dividing the world into us and them, preaching about virtue while fueling outrage. They don't just ignore their darkness, they turn it into a weapon. Guilt is transformed into blame. Every bit of anxiety is projected as rage. Doubt becomes dogma. Listen careful to their words, and you'll notice the pattern. They're out to get us. Only we know the truth. Everyone else is blind. There's always a villain, always a crusade, always a demand for loyalty. This isn't simple projection anymore, it's projection, supercharged by power. That's when things get scary, because the moment someone truly believes they're always right, that they're morally superior, there's no limit to what they'll justify. History is packed with these characters, leaders who seem to offer hope or clarity, but behind their certainties, pulled families, movements, even nations into some of the darkest places imaginable. They point the finger at some outside group, the heretics, the outsiders, the unclean, and suddenly, all that darkness inside becomes someone else's fault. Why do people follow them? Because confidence is seductive. Even when it's hollow, certainty feels safer than doubt. The louder someone claims to have all the answers, the easier it is to get swept up and forget to ask questions. But here's the secret: behind every inflated ego, there's usually a wounded, terrified person. The wounds are deep. The insecurity is constant. The shadow that goes unchecked just keeps growing. And the bigger the pain, the louder the performance. Jung got it exactly right. The larger the persona, the smaller the soul. If your entire identity is about convincing people you're perfect, eventually, there's almost nothing left inside but that performance. That's when the persona turns godlike, and empathy, humility, and honesty all but disappear. At that point, they're not just projecting darkness in one-on-one relationships. They export it into systems building, echo chambers, armies of followers, algorithms that spit their certainty back at them. The world becomes a mirror that only shows them what they want to see. More division, more control, more justification for their own pain. If you think this is just about extremists, think again. Look at the influencer shaming others for being toxic while running a personal smear campaign behind the scenes. The self-help guru preaching love and humility while demanding total devotion from their fans. The activist who starts with justice and ends up addicted to outrage, where the original noble cause gets forgotten in an endless chase for purity and approval. And suddenly, it's not just about ego. It's about power, having the audience, the clout, the money, the platform to turn any tiny criticism into a global punchline, to silence opposition, to rewrite reality itself. The moment someone stops questioning themselves, when everything must be about their version of right, things get ugly, because to keep being perfect, they need everyone else to be a threat, an obstacle, or a villain. When the ego gets this big, there isn't even room for basic respect, let alone empathy. That's when people get hurt. If you disagree, you're not just different, you're challenging their whole identity. And for some, that's unforgivable. This is how you can end up in a job, a friendship, or a movement that felt warm and supportive at first, but turns ice cold, and what was love, or kindness, or purpose suddenly flips to attack, guilt, and shame. You realize all the compliments were conditional, all the warmth depended on never questioning, never resisting. And the wildest part, these people aren't trying to trick you. They truly believe they're saving you, that their certainty is a gift. But what they're really doing is feeding off your attention, your need for direction, your fear of being wrong, or left behind, or alone. They offer you a map, a purpose, a villain to blame for everything that hurts. But the map never leads anywhere, and the villain was never really you. Jung understood that when someone is consumed by the need to always be right, they're not possessed by demons, they're gripped by a rigid, brittle identity that can't stand to break or bend, ever. They're not just unaware of their shadow, they are the shadow, walking in daylight, collecting followers, hiding in plain sight. That's why, when you finally see through the mask, it can feel shocking. These people don't look like monsters. They look like leaders, healers, mentors, lovers, even the good guys. But listen closely. Behind the charm, there's an ache that never settles. Behind the confidence is the wounding, the hunger, the relentless need for more. Once you recognize it, you can't unsee it. And while it may be sad, or unsettling, or even enraging at first, ultimately it's empowering, because you realize their darkness isn't yours to carry. Their story isn't your story. Remember, ego inflation doesn't whisper, it roars. But only if you're still asleep. The moment you wake up, you see it for what it is, a desperate performance, a plea for attention, a mirror reflecting pain and confusion, not truth. Okay, now that we've talked about the shadow inside all of us, and those whose ego inflates until they become the shadow itself, let's dive into something a little more subtle, but no less powerful: the persona. Carl Jung described the persona as the social mask we wear to navigate the world. It's not fake, exactly, it's practical. Think of it this way. You wouldn't wear your pajamas to a job interview or talk to your boss like you do your close friends. The persona is how we present different sides of ourselves depending on the situation. It helps us connect, belong, survive. But here's the catch in today's world. The persona is on steroids thanks to social media. We don't just wear masks, we build entire brands around them. We curate our feeds, polish our images, rehearse what to say, and edit out anything that might make us look imperfect. And over time, we start believing the mask is who we really are. That's where trouble begins. The shinier the mask, the deeper the hidden shadow. You've probably seen this, the influencer who constantly posts positivity and success, but then suddenly breaks down publicly. Or the friend who's always so cheerful until they lash out unexpectedly. Or the guru teaching humility, but demanding total control over their followers. It's not hypocrisy. It's the shadow trapped beneath the persona, screaming to be noticed. When you build your identity solely around your light, your successes, your charm, your confidence, you deny the darker parts of yourself. And denial never makes darkness disappear. It just buries it deeper, making it stronger and more unpredictable. Eventually, that hidden darkness will erupt, and often it does so in the most public and painful ways, shaking the very foundation of who you thought you were. Jung said it best: the persona is necessary, but the denial of the shadow is dangerous. This cycle is everywhere. The polished professional who seems in control but secretly battles anxiety or imposter syndrome. The perfect parent who hides frustration and sadness behind a smile and Instagram posts. The celebrity who crafts an image that millions admire while hiding addictions or despair. Social media magnifies this effect because it creates a pressure cooker for the persona, a never-ending performance that never allows cracks to show. And when those cracks inevitably appear, The fall feels catastrophic not just to the audience, but to the person wearing the mask. The shame and fear come crashing in, triggering an even stronger urge to hide or lash out. That's why you might have noticed how often public figures respond to criticism with rage or denial. They're protecting the persona at all costs because losing that mask feels like losing themselves. And if situations get intense, the persona can collapse entirely, and the shadow explodes into view, messy and uncontrolled. But here's a secret not many talk about. No one escapes their shadow. It's part of being human. The question isn't how to get rid of it. It's how to live with it consciously. How to hold your persona and your shadow as parts of a whole, not enemies. When you practice this kind of self-awareness, you create resilience. You stop needing to pretend. You allow space for your messy, imperfect self, including the anger, the doubt, the fears and flaws. You start to see others through this lens too, not just their shiny masks, but their hidden struggles. And that builds compassion and real connection. So, what can you do if you find yourself trapped under the pressure of your persona? Here are some practical steps. Give yourself permission to be imperfect. This sounds simple, but it's powerful. Instead of striving for constant polish, practice showing your true feelings with trusted people. Journal your hidden feelings. Write down what you don't usually say aloud, the doubts, the fears, the anger. Letting them out on paper reduces their power. Practice radical honesty, starting with yourself. Catch yourself when you're slipping into the performance mode and pause. Ask, what am I really feeling right now? Limit social media if it triggers comparison or fear. Remember, the highlight reel isn't the full story. Find spaces where vulnerability is welcomed. This could be a close friend, a therapist, or a creative outlet like art or music. By slowly integrating your shadow into your story, you gain freedom from the exhausting cycle of pretending. You reclaim your authentic self, and ironically, people respond to that more than any curated persona, because authenticity is magnetic, and when you stop fearing your shadow, you no longer need to project it onto others. This journey into understanding shadow, ego, and persona isn't a quick fix. It's a lifelong practice, but it's one that empowers you to enter relationships, workspaces, and communities with greater clarity and peace. You begin to recognize when someone is projecting their pain onto you, and instead of internalizing it, you can protect your own boundaries. You also understand when a brilliant smile hides a storm, so you can offer empathy without losing yourself. In short, you don't become a victim of shadow and projection. You become a witness, a survivor, and eventually, a light in the dark. So now that we've unpacked the persona, the inflated ego, and the shadow itself, it's time to talk about a crucial skill: spotting projection when it happens to you, and protecting yourself without losing your calm or sense of self. Because projection can feel so confusing. It feels personal. It feels like an attack. But it's actually someone else's inner chaos spilling out. Think about this. You're having a conversation. Suddenly, the other person accuses you of being selfish, or manipulative, or uncaring. You're stunned because you know that's not you. Your mind races. Did I say something wrong? Am I really selfish? The doubt creeps in, and with it, guilt. That's projection digging its claws in. The first step to protect yourself is to recognize the red flags, when the emotion is way out of proportion to what you said or did. Like you ask a simple question and they explode. When accusations don't line up with your actual actions or intentions. They say you're cruel, but you've been kind. When mood swings flip from warm and caring to cold and hostile in seconds. When they use extreme words: always, never, everyone, as if rewriting the whole story just to make you the villain. If you notice these, it's usually projection. The person isn't really mad at you. They're mad at something inside themselves. They're terrified to confront. That means arguing or trying to convince them is mostly a waste of time. They are not open to hearing your side because their mind is defending a fragile ego. So, what do? Pause, breathe, detach. Imagine you're holding a mirror up to their words without getting sucked in. You don't have to absorb it. It's not your truth. Use grounding techniques. Feel your feet on the floor. Take deep, slow breaths. Focus on your senses, what you see, hear, touch right now. These simple actions bring you back into your body, your center, and away from getting hijacked by their emotional storm. Next, check in with yourself. Ask, does this accusation reflect who I know myself to be? Am I shrinking to fit their story? If the answer is no, then give yourself permission not to carry their pain or guilt. Sometimes the best response is silence. Sometimes it's a calm boundary. I won't accept being spoken to this way. And other times, it means walking away altogether. Remember, you are not responsible for their shadow. You can't fix it. You don't have to survive on their terms. Here's a mental trick that helps. When someone projects, imagine their words bouncing off you like rubber balls. The energy comes at you, but it just bounces right back to them. You stay untouched, calm, and steady. At first, this sounds easier than it is. Projection pulls us because we want to be liked, to be understood. We want peace, but peace comes from knowing your truth, not from agreeing with every accusation. Now, what if you suspect someone close to you is living in projection all the time? How do you protect your boundaries without destroying a relationship? That's a tougher conversation. Here's what helps. Set clear boundaries. When you speak to me like that, I need to step away. Avoid getting drawn into heated arguments. Change the topic or pause the conversation. Watch for cycles of projection and withdrawal. If the pattern repeats, it might be time to reconsider your closeness. Practice self-care. Surround yourself with people who reflect your true worth and kindness. If you're dealing with projection from a boss, a family member, or a partner, it can feel suffocating. You might think you're going crazy. You might second-guess yourself constantly. That's why understanding projection is so powerful, because it gives you a lens. Suddenly, you see the problem wasn't you all along. And when you stop blaming yourself, your energy shifts. You have space to heal, to grow, and to choose environments that uplift you instead of drain you. Communication also matters, but only when both sides are willing. If someone is projecting, usually they aren't ready to face their shadow, so sometimes saying nothing is the best form of self-respect, and sometimes you can gently suggest therapy or but remember, you can't save someone who isn't willing to save themselves. Before we wrap up this part, let's talk about what happens when projection spills into group settings, workplaces, families, social circles. Projection there creates toxic atmospheres where blame gets thrown around like grenades, and the real issues never get addressed. People get labeled as problematic or difficult, not because of their behavior, but because they serve as mirrors for someone else's pain. Recognizing this dynamic can help you navigate those environments more mindfully, not taking sides blindly, but looking for underlying fears and insecurities fueling the chaos. And if you're a leader or creator, like a manager or a community organizer, this knowledge is gold. You can create spaces where people are invited to be real, to express shadow parts safely, to step out of projection cycles. That transforms relationships, teams, and communities from battlegrounds into places of trust and growth. Projection feels personal, but often is in single quotes to learn red flags, emotion out of proportion, mismatched accusations, extreme language. Don't argue. Pause and ground yourself. Check your own truth. Don't absorb what's not yours. Use boundaries, silence, or space to protect yourself. Know when to gently encourage others to face their shadow, but accept you can't force it. Watch for projection in groups and use awareness to bring healthier dynamics. When you master this, you're not just avoiding drama. You're reclaiming your peace and your power. You don't escape projection by avoiding people. You escape it by seeing through it, by deciding, I'm not going to pick up what isn't mine, and by holding respect for others without letting their confusion spill into your self-worth. So, what's next? Now that you understand projection, shadow, persona, and those tricky psychological games, how do you move forward? How do you keep your heart open without letting someone else's darkness dim your light? It starts with acceptance, not just of others, but of yourself. The parts of you that are complicated, the feelings you wish you didn't have, the moments you mess up or fall short. Instead of waging war on your own shadow, practice meeting it with curiosity. What is this emotion trying to teach me? Where's this jealousy or anger coming from? The more you turn the light inward, the less power the darkness has over you. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is tell yourself the truth, to admit when you're hurting, or scared, or just plain tired. That's not weakness, that's real life strength. And the wild thing, when you grant yourself permission to be imperfect, suddenly the world feels a lot less threatening. Other people's shadows stop looking like monsters. You just see them for what they are: wounds, hurts, stories, not a verdict on you. This doesn't mean you let people off the hook for bad behavior. Boundaries still matter a lot. But instead of building walls out of fear, you build them from respect. It's saying, I will listen, but I won't lose myself. It's not about winning every argument, but keeping your peace. Even if no one else understands, you learn to walk away without anger, to leave relationships, jobs, or situations where projection is the norm, not the exception. You realize your energy is precious, and you protect it like you would a child. You start to choose spaces where honesty is welcomed, where people can be messy and real and still feel safe. That's where the good stuff happens, true connection, growth, and even a rare sense of belonging. And here's the secret Jung hinted at. Hidden between all of his words, the people who do the real work, face their own shadows, who dare to question themselves are the ones who transform not just themselves, but everyone around them. Your courage to be real gives others permission to do the same. So, the next time you sense projection flying your way, remember, pause before reacting. Not everything deserves your energy. Double-check with your own truth. Does this feel like me, or does it belong to them? Set boundaries to protect your peace. Let go of the need to fix, explain, or rescue others from their own shadows. Choose environments and relationships that reflect your worth and honesty. You'll notice a shift. You begin to move through life with more ease. Accusations don't stick the way they used to. Other people's chaos no longer pulls you off center. You can love people, really love them without becoming their emotional punching bag. You realize this journey wasn't about becoming harder or colder, but about becoming clearer and kinder. You become the grounded one in the room, the person who doesn't flinch or fight when shadows appear, the one who can say, that's not mine, and walk away with compassion instead of resentment. And isn't that the real freedom? Not living in fear of other people's darkness, but shining your own light even brighter in spite of it. In the end, Carl Jung gave us a roadmap not just for surviving the shadows, but for transforming them. The world doesn't need more people obsessed with appearing perfect. It needs people who are real, who can dance with their shadows and come out wiser and softer on the other side. So go out there, notice the projections, the masks, the performances, and then choose honesty anyway. Choose trust. Choose to see clearly, to love deeply, to let the darkness teach you without letting it define you. Because that's how you become by avoiding the monsters, but by learning to see in the dark and never mistaking someone else's shadow for your truth. Thanks for staying with me all the way through this journey. If this resonated, let me know in the comments, what shadows have you faced, and what have you learned from them? Don't forget to share and subscribe if you want more deep dives, just like this one. See you next time, in the light and the dark.